Hello and thank you for joining us on Sideline Story, your destination for sports news, analysis and discussions. I'm Brandon Yates and today we will be discussing the 2023 Hangzhou Asian Para Games. We'll chat about the athletes, the best moments so far and the significance of the event. I'll be getting into all of these talking points with my two fantastic co-hosts, Yang Guang and Fu Yu. And Yang Guang, we've already seen some phenomenal and memorable moments at the Asian Para Games up until this point. But from your side of things, what have been the highlighting moments of the Asian Para Games as a whole?
There are a few highlights at the opening ceremony. First of all, how the Chinese para swimmer Xu Jialin led the quadrant. When she led the quadrant, she actually held the torch with an intelligent bionic arm.
Yes, that's been widely reported on.
I was really amazed because I've never seen this except in the sci-fi movies. And it showcased how technologies can help those with disabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic to see technology at this point in time in our lives being able to help those people with disabilities, whether it's in normal day-to-day life and in the sporting world.
Yeah, and apparently that prosthetic arm can help those who have arm amputation to perform actions like grabbing, holding, and even handshaking.
Wow.
And it can help users to lift items weighing as many as 30 kilograms.
Wow. So it's very practical.
More important,
and can be applied to various aspects of life.
More importantly, it can detect the user's intention by interpreting the neural signal of muscle and allow them to
we're really living in the future, right? That's incredible.
Do the complex actions. And another highlight for me at the opening ceremony was the dancing by a wheelchair basketball player from Kuwait. When he entered the stadium with his delegation, the volunteers waved at him and amid a cheering crowd in the stadium. And he got so excited and he joined the dancing and by juggling his wheelchair.
Right.
And to dance.
That'll probably be one of those viral moments when the games comes to a conclusion, something that people remember for a long time.
It was really a touching moment for me because I saw the confidence and the happiness from these para-athletes.
They probably have that feeling that, I'm finally on this global stage and I have the ability to showcase what I can do. And I guess that was just a moment where all of that expectation and joy just jumped out of him.
It's like a big party he was invited to. And
fantastic.
He earned much applause from the stands. And there are also some great moments from the competitions, of course. One performance that really caught my eyes was Chinese swimmer Guo Jincheng's men's S5 50-meter freestyle race. Guo had amputation on both of his arms, and he swam by pedaling his legs only. But he paddled really fast, and he didn't take a single breath the whole time in that 50-meter race. And he touched the wall first.
It just shows you their dedication and professionalism as well, because, to train for something like that in itself is pretty incredible, but then to be able to hold your breath in that sort of sporting code on such a great stage, what an incredible achievement.
And he touched the wall by knocking his head directly to the wall.
Wow.
Without any fear, in a very fast speed actually. So that's really bravery action. And I think he broke the tournament record in that race.
Fantastic.
And another highlighting moment for me was on a football pitch.
Of course, we love football.
In football for athletes with visual impairments, Chinese player Yu Tan, he dribbled past almost all defenders from Team Japan and scored a fantastic solo goal.
Producing a messy moment.
And Team China a 1-0 win.
Fantastic.
In this version of football games, all the players except the goalkeepers, they wear eye patches.
Yes, I've seen this.
They can't really see what's going on the pitch. They received the instructions by their coaches on the sideline. So under such circumstances, the Chinese player scored that fantastic solo goal, which I think can be equally beautiful if it occurs in a football game for able-bodied athletes.
It's probably more significant in an event like this because there's so many more difficulties that this particular athlete probably had to deal with than an able-bodied athlete would have to deal with.
Indeed. Yeah.
So I guess it's going to be one of those footballing moments, regardless of, able-bodied or at the Para Games, that will be remembered for a very long time. For you, Yang Guang's already mentioned some very memorable moments from the Asian Para Games at this point, and I'm assuming you also have some from your side?
Sure. I'm just as impressed as Yang Guang by the double amputee swimmer. Since he doesn't have both of his arms, he probably had to swim for a longer distance since he had to touch the wall with his head. If, for example, a person with both arms or at least one arm can reach out with their hand, but he had to touch with his head. But
well, it sounds like he slammed with his head, which is pretty incredible. I mean, the dedication to potentially injure yourself to get that victory is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and also his determination. But
yes.
Without both of his arms, he still managed to win the competition. That is incredible. And also another moment for me is when Chinese paddler Xie Maosan won the first gold medal of the Hangzhou Games. So she's already made history, and there's actually even more history because her sport, canoeing, is making its debut at the Para Games. So she will go down in history as the first ever gold medalist in canoeing at the Para Games.
Yeah.
And this athlete is a wheelchair user, so she already has to spend a lot more time to perform the tasks in her daily life. And to think that she still had to train for the Hangzhou Para Games I can't imagine what hardships or how much work she has to go through. Before she became a professional athlete, she was a seamstress, which was, I think, is very different from what she is doing now because her old job doesn't look like it requires a lot of upper body strength. I may be wrong, but that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah.
And to go from that to being a para-athlete is a huge leap.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of what you kind of have to do with your upper body. Going from intricate work to a sport that requires a lot of upper body strength, I guess that's quite an adjustment to make.
Yeah, especially for these people who are in a wheelchair. She had polio as a child, so she goes about in a wheelchair. Their lower body probably doesn't function that well, so she gathers all her strength in her upper body, and she won this canoeing event. I think is incredible, and I'm sure there are so many more stories like hers waiting to be discovered, even after the Hangzhou Para-Asian Games.
Yeah, I think a couple of the moments that you've already mentioned, the two of you, I think those are going to be remembered for quite some time. But like you said, I think it's just going to be the start of many incredible things that we will see as the years progress. Yang Guang, we know that the Asian Para Games is a very significant event for a variety of reasons. But from your side of things, what makes it particularly significant in your eyes?
I think the Para Games is equally significant as the Asian Games.
Absolutely.
We have both games because of the same reason. We celebrate sports, not only for able-bodied athletes, but for athletes with disabilities. I think the Para Games actually is an occasion for some people to change their attitudes toward disability through sports action and how they are portrayed at the games, just like how I saw the confidence in that wheelchair basketball player from Kuwait.
Yeah. I think it has an interesting impact on the way people view those athletes, but also the way potentially that those athletes feel about themselves. And even people that aren't necessarily athletes that are disabled, when they watch these athletes competing on a global stage, that must also be incredibly inspiring for them in their day-to-day lives.
Indeed. And what able-bodied people bear in mind sometimes, towards people with disabilities is sympathy or compassion, but what Paragames present is confidence, is courage, is bravery, is optimism of these athletes from the Paragames.
So it takes away that instinctive feeling, I guess, from able-bodied people to feel sympathy and empathy for these athletes and people that are struggling with disabilities, and rather to see them as, wow, just like you and me, competing on a global stage, full of confidence, full of talent.
Yeah.
So it's a mind shift opportunity that I think is pretty incredible.
And people are impressed with their performances.
Absolutely, as they should be.
Yeah. For example, I was really impressed with wheelchair tennis players. I watched some of Chinese player Guo Luoyao's games, and she was really good. I mean, how she made the strokes, how she hit the ball, how she moved alongside the baseline on her wheelchair nimbly. That was really impressive to me. And she said after her first round victory, I think, she said, I've never seen so many people watching me to play.
Yeah.
But I think she totally deserves this. I think sometimes media misrepresents people living with disabilities, and the Paragames is an opportunity to challenge this narrative and showcase the determination and the resilience of the para-athletes, because they also push for boundaries of what's possible in their respective sports.
I was just thinking about that now, because I think another unique opportunity that the Asian Para Games presents for these athletes and for disabled people around the world is to showcase to able-bodied people that these disabled athletes have so many more difficulties to deal with, but they manage to overcome those difficulties and produce something incredible. So it really is something that these athletes should feel confident about, because yes, they struggle with disabilities, but the fact that they've overcome them and are able to represent their nations and compete really at a world-class level in a variety of sports, I mean, what an incredible achievement, and what an incredible platform to inspire so many people around the world by competing at an event like the Asian Para Games.
I think the Para Games is like a creed to all the people with disabilities. You can try out sports. You can pick up sports anytime, anywhere. I had this chance to talk to an American who promotes hand cycling for those with spinal cord injuries in China. He organizes activities like hand cycling trip from Yunnan to Beijing, which is 5,000 kilometers long.
That's quite a distance.
Yeah, and he organizes these activities to encourage people with disabilities to experience sports and outdoors. And he told me, sports opens doors, and the Para Games is a perfect celebration of this concept. I really like this saying.
Yeah, and I think another great thing about sports in general, whether you're able-bodied or disabled, is that it encourages togetherness and participation and getting outdoors and living an active, healthy lifestyle. And I think that's particularly important for people with disabilities to realize, is that yes, you're dealing with incredible challenges, but you also have the ability to overcome those challenges and live a really fulfilled, fantastic, active, outdoorsy, sporty lifestyle. And I think the Asian Para Games is a fantastic example of all of those elements that we've just mentioned now. For you, from your side of things, Yang Guang and I have discussed the significance of the Asian Para Games. Is there anything else that you want to touch on?
Sure. For these kind of games, participation is always more important than the result.
Yes.
And about why these games are so important, or why we need the Para-Asian Games. On a personal level, I think one reason is to discover all the inspiring stories behind the athlete's success.
Yeah.
If you're going through a rough patch in your life, just watch the Para Games and see what they've been going through. And I'm sure that will offer, not necessarily change, but at least offer some new perspectives.
Yeah, it kind of, when I watch some of those Asian Para Games athletes competing, it makes me feel like the difficulties that I deal with on a daily basis seem so insignificant. I mean, they're still my problems and I still deal with them, but to be able to see other people overcoming such incredible, significant challenges and be able to, showcase incredible talent on a global stage, it really is fantastically motivating.
Sure. Yeah, I like that word.
Motivating,
It motivates all of us. And on a wider scale, I think the Paragames are important because it makes sure that these group of people are not forgotten. Earlier in our episode, I mean the early stages of our podcast, we've discussed the development of barrier-free services or infrastructure.
Yeah.
Especially after the Beijing Olympic and Winter Olympic Games. The development of this infrastructure has helped a lot of disabled people. So it's important that they continue to grow even after these international level sporting events.
Yeah, we need to ensure that continuity, right? To make sure that it's not just for one event, but that it becomes a continuous effort to make accessibility and just day-to-day life a lot more sustainable and easier for people with disabilities, whether you're an athlete or just a day-to-day person.
Yeah, and they are continuing to grow. And also, in fact, at the Hangzhou Paragames, organizers have set up more barrier-free or wheelchair-accessible spaces for spectators. And also at the interview zones, they've lowered some of the barriers for athletes, for like journalists and athletes to have a better interaction. So yeah, these are important aspects that the Paragames are helping with the daily lives of some of those people who need help. And actually, since these international level sporting events, we've seen more people with disabilities moving about.
Yes.
Before, we haven't seen a lot of them because the environment isn't very friendly to them.
It wasn't really conducive for them to enjoy day-to-day activities easily.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there aren't that many wheelchair ramps or any infrastructure that will help them get to places. And today, even those who are not stepping out of their homes, some of them are making a splash online to tell people about the misconceptions or things that able-bodied people don't previously know about this demographic. I think that's helpful as well. And it'll also help able-bodied people change their perspective or clear their misunderstandings.
I think it just brings them knowledge too. I think that a lot of able-bodied people and athletes, just, civilians, are not really aware of certain difficulties that disabled people deal with. And I think events like the Asian Paragames and then those athletes that become famous or well-known online, they can use their platform to spread awareness about the work that still needs to be done to assist the athletes and just disabled civilians as well.
Yeah, I'm one of those people whose perspective has changed after watching these games or after seeing more people with disabilities going about their daily lives. Before, if I saw a disabled person, I would just stay away from them because I don't know if I will accidentally hurt them or disturb them. But now if I see a wheelchair user or someone with limited mobility, the first thing that comes to my mind is if they need help.
Yes.
If I should go up and ask if they need any assistance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's also helpful for I don't know if unity is a good word for
approachability. Maybe I think that when we see events like the Asian Paragames and athletes that are disabled that have a high profile, when they go out there and kind of make some of their issues that they're dealing with, they create awareness for it globally. I think it gives able-bodied people the confidence to communicate potentially with disabled people that they would see in their day-to-day lives. And go up to them and say, look, can I help you? Is there anything that you're struggling with? So it does have a great reach in terms of moving the accessibility of disabled people in general going forward. But I think just for day-to-day civilians, it also creates awareness for them and, like I've said, gives them the confidence to approach maybe disabled people that they would see in their day-to-day lives which, like you said, maybe you wouldn't have done previously.
It also helps clear the mental barrier between different groups of people.
Yeah, and I guess that will be the legacy of something like the Asian Para Games, is that it creates awareness for certain situations that maybe able-bodied people weren't aware of, that disabled people have to deal with. And I think it also creates a great platform for, institutions and governments around the world to create environments that makes life for disabled people a lot easier and gives them a lot more accessibility than they may have had in the past. But sticking with the Asian Para Games, Yang Guang, we've seen some incredible athletes, some phenomenal performances. Have there been any standouts for you?
Yeah, there's specific wheelchair basketball player from Team China that really touched me with his story with Kobe Bryant. His name is Qin Xulei. He actually became an amputee when he was a child after an accident. And later he picked up the hobby of playing basketball and he played on his wheelchair and became a really good shooter. And 10 years ago, when Kobe came to China, he had this chance to speak to Kobe face to face at a reality show. What an
amazing opportunity to have.
Yeah, and Kobe really encouraged him to keep on going with his basketball dreams. Kobe said, quote here, to go through the adversity, to face the adversity, and not being afraid of it, not running from it, but instead embrace it and take on the challenge. This is not something everyone can learn in their lives, but Qin actually...
And it's something that can be avoided too, because some people do run away from their problems. But a lot of these athletes, well, I suppose all of these athletes that we see at the Asian Para Games, they've faced those challenges head on, which requires so much bravery.
And Kobe said Qin was tough enough to deal with all of that. And he called it really a big success.
Yeah.
Qin was actually a teenager when he met Kobe 10 years ago, and now he has become a wheelchair basketball player for the national team.
Yeah, and I must say some of the highlights that I've seen just on TV and online, some of the best things that I've seen from the Asian Para Games is just the shooting abilities of some of these wheelchair basketball players. They are unbelievable athletes.
He's a really good shooter from the national team. He actually got 17 points from one of the games. He was really the star of that game. And after years of exercise and hard work, his dream came true. And he says basketball has become a faith, a driving force in his life. And he even wants to take part in the Paralympics sometime.
Fantastic.
I saw a comment from a basketball fan on social media. He said, after seeing Qin playing basketball at the Asian Para Games, he said, Kobe will see it.
Yes.
It's really touching because to challenge oneself constantly throughout his life has been the motto of Kobe. And
constantly reinventing himself, challenging himself, and not being able to sit back and, say, I've achieved everything that I possibly want to achieve. You're constantly looking for new challenges to keep improving and keep bettering yourself. That was probably one of the greatest legacies of Kobe.
Yeah, and now this is perfectly reflected on a wheelchair basketball player. He inspired 10 years ago. It's really beautiful.
And I think that wheelchair basketball player will also go on to inspire so many other athletes around China and the Asian continent and potentially the globe. So that's been fantastic to see. So that was your standout athlete, right? And I guess we've also seen some incredible sporting action across the Asian Para Games as well for you. And there's been a lot of sporting events that we've all really enjoyed watching, wheelchair basketball definitely being one of them. Have there been any sports in particular that you've really enjoyed watching?
Yeah, I really like swimming because there are many categories under this sport, depending on the athlete's physical limitations.
Yeah, there's a lot of subcategories, right, for a variety of sports at the Asian Para Games, depending on certain disabilities, right?
Yes. And I think watching these swimmers, it's incredible to see how they're able to balance their bodies and so go forward in water despite not being able to move certain parts of their body or missing limbs. So I think it's very inspiring. I'm not a good swimmer. I don't even know if I can stay afloat if you throw me into the pool.
So it's more like surviving, not swimming, if you get thrown into a pool.
Yeah, that's for me. So yeah, I'm very amazed by these swimmers at the Para Games.
Yeah.
And also blind football, which Yang Guang earlier mentioned. Yeah, football
That messy moment, yeah.
Visually impaired people. These people play football with eye patches, and they only move around the field based on instructions. And I think it's also very incredible that they are able to work as a team and locate the ball, locate the goal, and score goals. I think that's a very interesting sport. I'm not familiar with it before, but since now I have more idea about the needs or the struggles and the dedication of these disabled people, I think in the future I will pay more attention to this sport and just anything else that these disabled people are doing in their life. Speaking of these players on the field, one thing I'd like to mention is that if you're watching blind football, spectator etiquette is very important.
Yes.
If not more important than that in tennis or in snooker.
Yeah, probably a lot more.
Yeah,
because communication is so important.
Yeah, because they don't see and they play based on instructions. So it's important that the audience stay as quietly as they can.
It must be quite a unique experience as a fan, though, to be sitting in a football stadium and desperately wanting to cheer your team on. But you know, if you cheer, you're probably going to actually affect their performance in a negative way.
Yeah, but they have to keep that to themselves because they have to avoid confusing the players.
Of course. Also sounds like a unique element of the Asian Games, and something that I think will be a lasting legacy is that, for the Asian Para Games in particular, or just para sports in general, is that communication becomes so incredibly important. And I think that's one of the wonderful elements of those sports, is that it requires a lot of teamwork. So you probably find that these athletes and coaches are very closely connected and will probably share a bond that lasts a lifetime. And probably one of the biggest legacies of the Asian Para Games and Para Games in general is that we're hopefully going to see a lot more awareness of people with disabilities, the struggles that they're going through, and the things that governments and institutions can do to improve the daily lives of these people, and to also take away the stigma where able-bodied people look down at disabled-bodied athletes with sympathy or empathy, and should rather change that mentality and look at them with respect and being inspired and motivated. But yeah, I guess one of the most significant and long-lasting outcomes of the Asian Para Games is that it's going to create global awareness about people with disabilities and the struggles that they deal with. And hopefully that inspires disabled people and I guess able-bodied people to take on challenges head on and to face them and to create better lives for themselves and not let anything hold them back. I think that's going to be a phenomenal legacy of the Asian Para Games. But that is all we have time for on this week's episode of Sideline Story. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will be back next week with our latest topic, and we'll see you then.
This is CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.